Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. Guess who I am? I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy Wednesday to you and yours. Happy Ash Wednesday for those of you that celebrate it. We have a fantastic show planned for you today that should ruffle a few NBA feathers, or actually, I'm going to broaden the conversation that it goes beyond the NBA. The conversation we're going to have today about Mark Cuban's comments about tanking. He basically defended tanking, and it leads me into a discussion that I love to have about disrespect towards fans. That fans are the afterthought in all of professional sports and basically all of sports right now. We will talk about that. We'll be joined by Jay Skapinac, Steve Kim, and Dre Baldwin in that discussion. Danny Kanell will be here as well today. We'll talk a little bit about Mark Cuban and the tanking deal, but there's some other, from Deion Sanders being called dumb to Kyler Murray. There's some other things football related that we'll get into with Danny Kanell. We'll end the show with Pastor Corey Brooks joining us, updating us on his walk across America and his relationship with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And so we'll hear from that. And then we have a harmony show planned for you as well, where we'll talk about Stephen A. Smith's comments about worshiping his mother and how that impacts young black men. We'll do that with Anthony, Virgil, and Shamika Michelle on the Harmony Channel. So a lot to do today. Great show planned for you. Those of you listening over Apple or listening and watching us over Spotify, 5-star rating. 5-star rating. Right now, do that. Help us fight the algorithm. It's important. Love those of you watching us over Spotify. That's important. Love those of you listening over Apple. However you're consuming the content, we love you. We appreciate you. We need you to show us appreciation by hitting that 5-star rating. The other thing you need to do is thank our sponsor today and listen to me as I tell you why our sponsor today is important, and it's CB Distillery. This is one of those sales I actually wait for every year. CB Distillery's stock up sale is live right now, and you can save up to 50% site-wide when you use the promo code VIP. Everything CB Distillery makes is premium quality, no artificial fillers, no junk, just clean plant-based CBD that people trust and come back for. They've got solutions for better sleep, less stress, recovery after workouts. They even make products for pets. I hear you guys rave about their sleep products, and the Relief Stick is always a favorite. I'm stocking up on the sleep gummies and the Relief Stick, but particularly the sleep gummies. I told you guys last week about how the sleep gummies bailed me out on a day where I went 2 days without sleeping, took those sleep gummies, and then I went to sleep for about 2 days or 14 hours. It was awesome. Thank you. It's one of those things I never want to run out of. This sale doesn't come around often, so don't miss it. Whether CBD is already part of your routine or you've been curious about trying it, now is the time to stock up and save up to 50%. CBDistillery.com. Use the promo code VIP. That's CBDistillery.com, promo code VIP. It's not available in Idaho, Iowa, and South Dakota. I'm sorry. I was about to say South Carolina. South Dakota. Idaho, Iowa, and South Dakota. Move to Nashville, Tennessee. You can get CB Distillery here. All right, let's get to today's show. Let me frame up the larger conversation we're going to have today. And I'm going to start by dating myself a little bit. And Mark Cuban, the former owner of the Mavericks, who still has a big basketball brand, he took to Twitter and said some fascinating things about tanking. Tanking is the big story in the NBA, and how are we going to fix tanking? And Mark Cuban had some really, really provocative things to say. But before I read his comments, I just want to make this analogy to I'm sitting here, Mark Cuban defending tanking, and my mind is blown, and it takes my mind to a Michael Dukakis. Does anybody remember Michael Dukakis? He ran for president in 1988 against H.W. Bush, or is it George H.W. Bush, I believe is Big Bush's name. Ran against him, and in a desperation move, he took a pit. They said Michael Dukakis was soft and he couldn't defend the country. He was afraid of the military or wouldn't know how to use the military. And so Michael Dukakis, the Democratic presidential candidate, visited some military-type facility and got in a tank and put a tank helmet on. And it became the biggest PR disaster in the history of tanks. And people still make jokes about it, and they call it Mike Dukakis the tank ride. You can still say that in politics, and as soon as you say tank ride, everybody knows what you're talking about. Everybody knows what a PR disaster it was. And so that's what I thought of when I was reading Mark Cuban's comments about tanking and his defense of tanking. And I'm just like, Mark Cuban, to me, is like the new Michael Dukakis. And we've got this tank slide that the NBA is experiencing. No one, people are out of the closet talking. There's a problem in the NBA. Adam Silver needs to fix it. This tanking, this lack of competition. But there's a tank slide. And they've sent Mark Cuban out because Mark Cuban wants to re-own the Dallas Mavericks. He's looking for his way back in. He's done his penance. He's paid his penalty. They ran him out of Dallas with the allegations of not sexual harassment is not the right word, but an improper workplace filled with sexual harassment. They ran him out and they forced some black woman in as president, and then they made him sell the team. I think Miriam Adelson owns the team. Mark Cuban wants the team back, and I think he's getting it back, but he's having to go through a little humiliation ritual process. He's having to do certain things for the NBA. Like Adam Silver's like, hey, man, I'm getting beat up over this tanking deal. Mark, go out and explain to the public why tanking isn't a big deal and it's not wrong. So here is Mark Cuban's statement. This isn't the full statement, but this is the stuff that really caught my attention. The NBA has been misguided thinking that fans want to see their teams compete every night with a chance to win. Holy cow, what an opening sentence. Just think this is an NBA owner, one of the most influential NBA owners of the last 30, 40 years. One of the highest profile NBA owners of the last 30, 40 years. I'm trying. Jerry Buss was high profile when he owned the Lakers. Pat Riley doesn't own anything. And so not Pat Riley. I'm trying to think, other than Jerry Buss, what NBA owner has a bigger brand than Mark Cuban? Maybe help me out here, Hadley. Help me out. Justin, anybody? Peyton's already said Pat Riley, and Pat Riley is a coach and executive. So Steve Ballmer is a high profile. Peyton's recovering. Steve Ballmer's high profile, but not as high profile as Mark Cuban. But anyway, just think that through. The highest profile NBA owner, other than Jerry Buss, who's now deceased. I just thought of, why can't I think of the guy who's famous for all the wrong reasons? Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling would have been high profile. But anyway, comes out and says the NBA has been misguided thinking that fans want to see their teams compete every night with a chance to win. That's an amazing statement by an NBA owner. All right, let's continue. It's never been that way. When I got into the NBA, they thought they were in the basketball business. They aren't. They're in the business of creating experiences for fans. Few can remember the score from the last game they saw or went to. They can't remember the dunks or shots. What they remember is who they were with. their family, friends, a date. That's what makes the experience special. When I tell you all that these sports have no respect for you, no respect for fans, this is what I'm talking about. Mark Cuban is a billionaire, lives in an elitist world, lives in a world where people make trips to Epstein Island, lives in a world where, they're just removed from reality. And this man thinks that the average fan doesn't care about the game, doesn't care about competition. They're there for a social experience. They hate hardcore sports fans. They hate men who enjoy watching men compete. Let me continue with Mark Cuban's statement. He acknowledges, we didn't tank often, only a few times over 23 years. But when we did, our fans appreciated it. What fans is he talking to in Dallas? Who? They enjoy it? And it got us where we could improve, trade up to get Luka, and improve our team. The NBA should worry more about fan experience than tanking. It should worry more about pricing fans out of games than tanking. Look, pricing fans out of games is a real problem. And that's perhaps why Mark Cuban is out of touch with what real fans think. But the importance of what Mark Cuban is saying can't be overlooked. This is an owner, an influential owner, coming out of the closet and saying, like, hey, look, this is the WWE. We're here to entertain you, and that is it. This isn't about competition. The main thing isn't the main thing. Sports rose to relevance, rose to importance because it was an example of the meritocracy and the importance of competition. Do you understand? This is it. What he's talking about is antithetical to capitalism. That, competition is what fixes the culture. Oh, you're supporting a business that has mistreated you, has done you a bad service, has an inferior product. Well, there's a competitor just down the road that's competing with them, and they'll go out of business for giving you bad product, bad service, for bilking you, for mistreating you. Competition will fix that. And Mark Cuban is arguing, no, we can treat you however we want to treat you. Did we not entertain you while we mistreated you, while we gave you bad product? Didn't the popcorn taste good? How about that hot dog? Hey, didn't you take a woman to a basketball game and you got lucky afterwards? That's what's important, not competition. Look, I know many of you, man, Whitlock, you're making too much. He's just making a statement about, no, I'm not making too much. He does not. And again, I know he said, man, I'm just writing this and I had to hop in my car and there's typos in here and blah, blah, blah. This is a calculated statement. This is a trial balloon. This is someone taking a bullet for Adam Silver and ushering out, hey, look, man, I know everyone thinks that, we got this tanking problem, but we don't have a tanking problem. We have a problem that people don't understand what it is. They don't understand what our business really is. And our business is to create narratives and storylines that entertain you and serve social media. And as long as we're all making money and you're entertained, no harm, no foul. And if some of you, and this includes me, said LeBron James, he's the problem. Kawhi Leonard, he's the problem. It's the load management. The players are lazy. They're the problem. Mark Cuban has just run out here and told you who the problem is. It's the owners. LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, the load management people reflect the mentality of ownership. The competition is irrelevant. This man that owned an NBA team for 23 years wants to re-own the Dallas Mavericks, will re-own the Dallas Mavericks, I believe, at some point. I want to go back to his first sentence. The NBA has been misguided thinking that fans want to see their teams compete. What he's saying is we're going to fill our arenas with more rap music so everybody can dance during the timeouts, during the games, or even during the game. We're going to run some cheerleaders out there, and they're going to shake their booty. And we'll even put some male cheerleaders out there for these new gay fans we brought in so that they can shake their booty. I don't know if I've heard of anything more significant than an NBA owner, a powerful NBA owner, one with a loud voice, coming out and saying this, and this applies to all sports. This mentality applies to the NFL. If you're wondering why Roger Goodell is looking at this bad product that the NFL is producing and saying like, hey, how can we get more of this? We need to go to an 18-game schedule. He doesn't want to fix the refereeing crisis. He doesn't want to fix the competition crisis that they have in the NFL, the softening of the game. They just sold you a Pro Bowl that was an embarrassment. A flag football game featuring Shedeur Sanders and a bunch of other guys in gold chains and gold grills running around doing nothing. Because, again, that mentality that Mark Cuban's talking about, it's running the NFL too. Hey, just come out and have an experience. Come out and have some nachos and beer and bring a date. And hopefully you'll get lucky after the date. And you'll be moderately entertained while the players half-ass it during a fake rigged competition. This entire thing is rigged for the casual sports fan. They have fallen in love because they're at war with the hardcore sports fan. And wait for it, I'm going to go all the way there where I always go and what this show is about. And I'm not forcing it here. I'm trying to reinforce the truth so it will get through your thick skull. They hate Christian sports fans. Christians organized sports in the late 1800s. We constructed this, we built this, and it was about competition. It was about merit. It was about reinforcing, confirming traditional Christian values. And they hate us. They hate you. They give you no respect. Everything that they're building is about eliminating you, replacing you with people with secular values, people who don't care about sports, reinforcing Christian values, merit, competition. Christian that prioritized and reinforced and brought unified people, sports fans. They don't care about, they want division. They want to have sports driven by storylines. Well, this is the first black person to be an assistant passing coordinator coach for a team that won 13 games and won their 13th game on a Tuesday night at 5 p.m. And the person was black, and therefore it's history. They want division. They want you out of sports, mad with sports, and many of us are falling for it. This is a hijacking of sports. This is, you want to talk about cultural appropriation? This is it. A Christian endeavor, sports, that was used to disciple young men and to create a muscular, masculine Christian man. It's been hijacked. And they hate you. And everything that they're doing caters to the casual fan that wants to go to a basketball game and sit in the stands and limp-wristed, soft men are comfortable coming and talking about how cute LeBron James is in those tight shorts. That's who this whole thing is catered for. He just told you. And same thing in football. Tanking is now good and fans enjoy it. He's not talking about me or you. He's talking about this new fan base that they are building, that sports are a soap opera. A day, a nighttime soap opera, a script to be followed to reinforce the values that they just pull out of their rear end or pull out of the latest Karl Marx book that they read. Someone has to help me here understand. Tanking, fans don't care. They don't want their... Again, why this is so repulsive to me is because I'm a nutty fan at heart. That's who I've always been. Anybody, I wonder if Bob Lamey used to be the voice of the Colts. His daughter Gail Lamey went to high school with me. Gail, I hope you're doing well. I'm trying to see if Bob Lamey is still alive. Let's see here. Yeah, Bob Lamey is, yeah. Bob Lamey is an American sportscaster, former radio play-by-play announcer for the Indianapolis Colts. Used to host a talk show when I was a child in Indianapolis. And I used to call Bob Lamey's radio talk show, I think it was WIBC. Man, my memory is incredible. Yes, WIBC. And I'm talking about when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And I would melt down. I can tell you exactly when, because I'll never forget. I was so upset. One of my greatest calls into Bob Lamey's talk show. Let me make sure I get this right. Stuart Gray, American basketball. Indiana Pacers. We drafted him in 1984. So I was a little bit older. Pacers drafted him, I believe, in 1984. And so I remember calling Bob Lamey and melting down on air, on WIB, about the stupidity of drafting Stuart Gray. I'm a nutty sports fan who all I care, my whole reason for getting into sports journalism, my entire thought was like, hey man, no one will hold the Pacers accountable for this dumb stuff they're doing that's ruining my team, and I'm going to get in the media and I'm going to hold the Pacers accountable. I want my team to win, and they suck and they do stupid things, and the media won't hold them accountable. And I used to call and rant and rave on sports talk shows. I went to, let me make sure I get this date right. I can never remember the year. They drafted Billy Martin from Georgetown. Am I got this right? Billy Martin from Georgetown. I want to make sure. I'm sorry because I'm just on one, and I'm melting down. Georgetown. Georgetown basketball? There we go. Billy Martin, Georgetown basketball. Let's see what years he put. Here's on Wiki Martin, Bill Martin. 1985. Yeah, they draft, and I can remember I went down there. So in 1985, I had to be 17 years old. 16 or 17. They went 17 years old. They went and drafted Bill Martin, and I was upset. And I went to the draft party. It was at Market Square Arena, and I'm yelling and screaming at the Pacers. It wasn't Mel Simons, the owner. Why am I forgetting? Donnie Walsh, I think, was the general manager at that time. And I'm yelling and screaming, what the hell are you doing? You could have drafted. I wanted him to draft Adrian Branch from Maryland in the second round. And I was just irate. And I'm yelling and screaming. And Adrian Branch, he had got busted for marijuana or something. And so I called him the dope man. You could have drafted the dope man, Adrian Branch. And you took Billy Martin. And the only reason why you took Billy Martin is because he was on that Georgetown national championship team and you were clout chasing. And clout chasing wasn't a word back then, so I don't even know what I said. But they were clout chasing. They just took Billy Martin because he was on a successful team. And I was like, you could have had the dope man. And I'm yelling. I'm cursing. I'm yelling. I'm a nutty fan. I want my team to win. And these people are coming out of the closet and saying sports aren't about winning. They're not about competition. They're about dinner dates. They don't respect you. And I'm done melting down. Let's bring in Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell, Jay Skapinac, and Dre Baldwin. Gentlemen, am I making too much? And Steve, we'll start with you. Am I making too much of Mark Cuban's comments here?
No. And I just want to say, that's the worst thing he has said since his endorsement of Kamala Harris. My God. The experience. Look, this ain't going to Disneyland, which a lot of adults do. It's kind of creepy. It's a cult. To tell fans that the results don't matter. And that you shouldn't care about the actual score or the standings. I'm going to relate this to, so you go to a concert, New Edition, I'm a fan. If I go out there and there's no Ralph or Bobby, just Ricky and Mike, I'd have an issue. I don't care who I'm with. I don't care. The experience would not be as good. I understand the rebuild process. I kind of understand the concept he's talking about, but what he is now saying, in essence, is you are the peasants. This is the schlep we're going to give you. Accept it.
Scap, am I making too much of this?
Look, I don't think so, Jason. It does fundamentally disgust me what Mark Cuban's saying. And quite frankly, I don't believe that Mark Cuban even believes in this messaging himself. He himself is like a massive diehard sports fan. So I don't know where these comments are coming from. Do you remember seeing Mark Cuban like in the crowd watching games for years as the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, mixing it up, screaming at officials, getting like $1 million fines from the league offices for criticizing the refereeing throughout games? Like, he is as competitive and wanted to win as much as any owner I've ever seen, like at least at the NBA stage. So I don't know why he's fibbing and lying with this commentary now. Whatever, how many ever years later we're at now, which, by the way, he does still own. I don't know if you know this. He owns still a minority stake in the Dallas Mavericks, 27%, I believe, as part of the deal in 2023 when he sold. So I'm not buying what he's selling. And it's a mistake to think that way, I think, for the NBA, because while there's a shade of truth in it for the casual observers, the casual consumers of sports aren't the primary market that the league should be going after. It's the diehard fans and the guys the men and the women that will watch and consume the sport and that game and that team and whatever, more than just, well, I'm going to go to the game one night out of 41. Like one game out of 41 home games for the NBA. I'm going to take my family or my girlfriend or my kids or whatever. and enjoy this experience that Mark Cuban's talking about. But it's the diehard fans that will get a package maybe to go to several games, or that will watch all of the games on TV, or have NBA League Pass or whatever. Those are the kinds of people that the league should be catering to more than these casual people that you and Mark Cuban were referencing.
I don't know, Scap. I think they want the hardcore fans out of the way. The hardcore fans have an actual standard. The hardcore fans are the ones that have refused to go along with, hey, LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. Hardcore fans have become super nostalgic and consistently talk about how much better things were in the past, and they want us to move on so they can continue to sell this slop as just as good as the previous generation. And, Steve Kim, Jay Skapinac, Dre Baldwin, Jason Whitlock, we won't play along. And so they're building a business model that doesn't cater to us. And I'm speaking of maybe Dre, let you hop in here before I could be speaking. Dre may love tanking and the slop they're feeding us. Dre, what's your take on this?
Well, Jason, I think you're answering the wrong question, because what the NBA has is not a tanking problem. It's an incentive structure problem. Give you an example. A few years ago, I did some work with the NBA on the business side. And I remember we were at a hotel in Jersey, and I was with two people who worked in the league office. And one of the girl said, I have a lot of work I have to do when I get back to the office tomorrow. And the guy said, well, don't get all your work done on Tuesday, because then how are you going to pretend to be working on Wednesday? And the whole point is this: the NBA is corporate. And in corporate America, just as in politics, there are certain things that you have to do that everybody else is also doing to survive and sustain in advance, but you can't announce that you're doing it. And you turn a blind eye to that is being done, but if you announce it, it's frowned upon, you get fired. And Mark Cuban is not corporate. Mark Cuban is also not political. He tried to be political with Kamala Harris, and we saw how that went because he was a little bit too transparent. Transparent politicians have short campaigns. Mark Cuban is transparent as an entrepreneur, and he's being transparent that losing is the best way to win this game of the NBA. If you're a middling team, you can't get any better, especially if you're not drawing free agents. So what he is saying is honest. That's what he's doing. He's being an honest dealer, and this is what works if you're going to be successful as a team in the NBA, and everybody knows it. It's just the fact that he's saying it out loud that people have a problem with. It's not the fact that it gets done, because a lot of teams do it. It's just that he's saying it out loud, and he can say it articulately enough that I don't think anybody's arguing with the logic of what he's saying. It looks like people are arguing with the spirit of his point, but he's not wrong.
Steve, I want you to react to that. I need more time to think.
No, I agree with Dre. What Mark Cuban said is not wrong. It's probably an unspoken truth that should have stayed behind this curtain. It's like the formula for Coke, never give that up. However, what I object to is not what Mark Cuban said, at least not that part. What I really object to is and fans should understand that and continue to support it. That's the problem. Teams can do whatever they want. I think the general public has a right to say, you know what? You tank, we tank. It's fine. You want to load manage your players? I'll load manage my interest. That's the part where I really have an issue, that Mark Cuban is now trying to adjust our expectations of what we want. Like when I was a Laker fan, okay, there was a dark age after Magic's retirement due to the HIV. I think the date was November 7th of 91. They went through about a 2-3 year stretch where it was just kind of like mediocre, bad basketball. Showtime abruptly ended, and they had to retool. But we didn't like the losing, but we understood, you know what, there's a plan here, but they're not openly trying to tank. I think most fan bases that are intelligent understand you're going to have a rebuilding process once in a while, but we are now at the stage where Adam Silver now has to address, hey, 1/3 of your teams is tanking, and now you're finding players or teams especially, and coaches are saying, well, we're just not going to play the guy. I think at that point, look, it's like boxing. Are there mismatches in boxing? Yes. Do we watch them? But do we want to watch fixed fights that are rigged? No. There's this fine line that is being crossed.
Scab, what's your reaction to Dre? Dre, go ahead. I'll let you respond. Go ahead.
Sure. A couple things is one of the ideas you threw out a couple days ago, Jason, was about the NBA and college basketball teaming up together. Well, let's extend that. Let's say the NBA and college basketball are teamed up and Mark Cuban's Dallas Mavericks decide they want to tank. They just announced Kyrie Irving's not coming back this season, if you consider that tanking. And now the team can say, hey, fan base, we know we're not that good this year. We may not even make the playoffs, but look, we are putting ourselves in a better position to get this guy from college. And now they can talk about it because it's part of the entirety of the system. When it comes to the hardcore fan, as Steve was just referring to and what you talked about, Jason, the hardcore fans understand our team is not going to compete this year, but I still support because in the future, there's some hope that this team is going to be successful. Hardcore sports fans follow their team through the downs and the ups. They just want some reason to believe that we're going to be successful in the future. And again, the only thing Mark Cuban is doing is saying the quiet part out loud, which does not work in corporate America. And the NBA is very corporate. And Adam Silver is very corporate. So him saying it out loud is the reason why he's paid more tanking fines than anybody, simply because he's saying the part that everybody else is doing. And he's, I guess, willing to take the fines. But he's not doing anything wrong here. This is part of the system that you floated the idea of a couple days ago.
Tanking no part of my idea, because I'm someone, I as a child, lifelong Pacer fan, I knew we weren't winning titles. I just wanted us to compete every night, maybe make the playoffs. That I enjoyed that. I enjoy because again, if you follow that logic out to its nth degree as a sports fan, it's like, hey, I'm a high school football coach. We're going to get beat by this high school football power. We're just mailing it in. We're not trying to pull off the upset. I'm going to sit my best player because he might get hurt against this powerhouse, but I can beat the team next week. I just don't, as a competitor, and again, you're a former college basketball player, former professional basketball player overseas, and maybe that's your overseas experience. In professional sports, as an athlete, you didn't go out every night trying to win the game regardless, even if you knew, like, man, there's not a good chance here. This other team's just got better talent than us.
Players don't tank. Front offices tank. The front office decides we're going to have this shabby product on the court. My hometown Philadelphia 76ers had the process. That's how we got Nerlens Noel. That's how we got Joel Okafor. That's how we got Ben Simmons, Michael Carter-Williams, Joel Embiid came from the process. And the reason Sam Hinkie, he was the guy running it, why he was frowned upon is because he was open and honest about it. Other teams tanked. The San Antonio Spurs tanked. When David Robinson got injured, they ended up with Tim Duncan. The Celtics were looking to tank to get Duncan. They didn't end up getting the pick. But this happens all the time. Teams were tanking for Wemby. They tanked to get all these high-level players teams have tanked for. The thing is, we have a lottery, so you never know how your luck is going to go, but you want to put yourself in the best possible position. The fans understand we're not going to be good this year. I'm going to go support the players who are trying hard. Mark Cuban talked about that in his Twitter posts, that one day we were tanking for Luka. We end up winning a game that we were kind of sort of trying to lose. We end up with a better or a worse draft pick, and we had to make a trade for it. I trade the first round pick in order to move up to number 3 to get Luka. That's kind of the breaks of the game. But if you have a lower quality product, you're probably going to end up losing. That's the mathematics of what they're doing.
Yeah. Jason, Dre, in terms of tanking, that's why we have a lottery. I remember the Houston Rockets in the mid-'80s basically did it twice in a row. And that's how they got the Twin Towers, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon, and then 86 with the New York Knicks and Pat Ewing. But I think the difference is this, and I was reminded of it with the passing of Doug Moe. God rest his soul, great basketball man. But I remember the Nuggets in the 80s were always about the second or third best team in the Western Conference. They were never going to beat the Lakers. And at least when you got the Nuggets, if you were a fan of that franchise, you got to see Alex English every game, Lafayette Lever, Dan Issel, and whoever else they had. But you got their best effort. The problem with tanking today is it's also laced with load management. So if you're an NBA fan, especially a hardcore one that wants to see some great players and some effort, you might end up not seeing 3 or 4 of the best players on certain nights. I think that's the issue, that there's always been tanking. I think Dre's absolutely correct. But when you add with load management, well, you don't even get the experience of watching that all-star from another conference. You get to see maybe once a year in your city.
Scap, hop back in here. You got any reactions to anything?
Yeah, I think, look, Jason, the uncomfortable reality is that tanking does work in the NBA if you execute it properly. And quite frankly, you don't have a chance to compete, be like, just a fringe contender team and then compete for like the ultimate prize in the NBA like you do in other sports. Like routinely we see teams in the NFL go from worst to first in a division, like overnight, like from one year to the next. You get some of these Cinderella runs in the NFL, even in baseball and the NHL at times. In the NBA, you can pretty much telegraph which teams have a chance to win an NBA championship before the season starts. Like mainly 2, 3, 4 teams at most that have like a realistic, viable chance to compete. So if you don't have that ability to be one of those few teams, unfortunately, the reality is it's easier and better to be terrible and maximize your opportunity in building a team that can get in that group of 3 or 4 teams. And guess what? The Oklahoma City Thunder showed that it works because they just did it. There was a fire sale with Paul George. They got rid of him. They got all the picks from the Clippers. They got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as part of that trade with the Clippers when they traded away Paul George. They got rid of Russell Westbrook. They surrounded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with bad players. They then shut SGA down for back-to-back seasons. They got picks that became Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, who have each now made an all-star game already in their young careers. Jalen Williams was All-NBA last year, and Chet Holmgren is going to finish top 2 in Defensive Player of the Year this year, and they have SGA. They won a championship last year. They're going to be the foreseeable championship favorites for the next 4 to 5 years every season, and it's all because they executed their tanking blueprint to perfection. The thing is, you do have to execute it. Dre talked about the 76ers because they did do it with the trust the process for years, and they didn't execute it properly. So they got nothing out of it. But that's not going to stop these teams and these different franchises from taking a shot at it and trying to execute their tank blueprint in the same way that the Oklahoma City Thunder showed that it does undeniably work.
Dre, you made the argument that Mark Cuban's being too transparent. No. You don't think someone instructed or gave him the approval to be this transparent?
No.
No?
No, he's being too transparent for a corporate entity such as the NBA, which is why he's been fined as much as he's been fined. It's not that he's saying anything that's really that crazy over the years. All the times he's been fined. It's just the fact that he's willing to say those things out loud and he can afford to pay the fines. That's it.
What's the solution? You started out by saying, hey, Jason, you're answering or asking the wrong question. What is the right question? What should we be? How do we solve this? Because I hear your point. Glad you made it. It's making me think and reconsider. But there is a problem. I don't like this as a sports fan. What's the solution?
So you're saying the problem as far as tanking. Well, when a team is tanking, let's say they put lesser players on the floor, the players are not tanking because the players are playing for their next contract. The players on a tanking team know that when the better players come in to replace them, they're probably going to be on a different team, maybe not even in the league anymore. So they are incentivized to play as best they can because they're auditioning for their next job. So the players are going to play well. I believe it was Skap who said a couple of days ago that he doesn't watch certain sports unless he's physically at the game. If you go to an NBA game of a tanking team and you're sitting in the first 20 rows, you will still enjoy the experience of watching the game because those are still high-level players. Those are the top 1% of players in the world playing against each other, even if you're pretty sure which team is going to win, which team is going to lose. But let's not forget, the talent differential in the NBA, even between the best and the worst team on a given night, is extremely small. Any team can beat any team any given day. As the movie said, any given Sunday when it referred to football. So you're still going to get a good experience as a fan. Now, if you're just perusing the box scores and your team is terrible, they're 10-60, then you may say, well, this team is not even trying. But on an experience level as a diehard fan, you would still appreciate the fact that those players are trying. So I think we're looking at this from two different angles.
Steve, Skap, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, look, the problem, let me just say, the problem is this. There's a lot of teams right now that are tanking in broad daylight. They're not being savvy enough with their tanking. Like the way you effectively tank in the NBA is to trade away or just let all of your big contracts expire. Go for or try to acquire expiring contracts or contracts that are going to be expiring within 2 years. Get young players, start, trying to build up your younger roster somewhat, give them opportunities to grow and get reps on the court. And just basically, like Dre is saying, put guys that are going to try hard on the floor, but they're just feasibly not good enough to compete with these other teams. The problem right now is we have teams like the Utah Jazz who are just flaunting it now because they actually have good players. Like Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. are really good players. They're just sitting them out games or just sitting them entire quarters. Like the thing that really drew the ire of the league and put a focus on the Jazz the last 2 or 3 weeks is they were leading these games going into the fourth quarter behind Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen, and then just didn't play any of the starters a single second in the fourth quarter and lost the games. Like, that's too egregious. They're going too far. These teams just need to be savvier in the way they're going about doing the tanking. And I think we can go back to this kind of symbiosis that we have between fans and the league and the teams where you know that it's happening, but it's not happening in broad daylight.
I don't agree with that. I think that's the corporate approach, which is to do half of your work on Tuesday, even though you could get it all done on Tuesday, so you can pretend that you're working on Wednesday. I don't like playing that game. Let's just do what we're going to do. Yeah, we're tanking. Yes, fans, we're tanking. Why? Because we're not going to compete for a title this year. We probably won't even win a playoff round if we make it. We want to get a better player so that next year we can put a really good team on the floor. And the hardcore fans are going to follow that. They understand it. People understand the concept of tanking. It's pretty much accepted as people do it. And the fans who are hardcore, I'm a Utah Jazz fan for life. I'm going to follow that because I'm saying, okay, let's see who we get in the draft. I like this guy from Kansas. I like that guy from BYU. Let's add them to the mix and let's see what we do next season. Eventually, you have to compete, though. That's the end game.
Let me just say this. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I was a diehard Steelers fan in my young life. And they were competitive every single year. They were winning 11, 12 games and then losing in the AFC Championship game or something. They never won the Super Bowl for like a 10-year span when I was in my formative years as a young man. They then, when I was in college, finally won a Super Bowl in my lifetime. But here's the thing. I personally do agree with what you're saying. I agree with tanking. I would rather have my team win a Super Bowl 1 year and then be terrible for the next 8 or 9 years. I would rather have that one moment where they win that one time at least and then not be competitive at all until they build up and then go and win another Super Bowl. But me as a diehard fan, it would annoy me if they had good players and were just literally mismanaging them or not letting them play at all to just literally tank right in front of my face. Like that honestly would annoy me personally as a diehard. Maybe what you're saying is true, but me personally as a diehard sports fan, I would be annoyed with what the Utah Jazz are doing right now.
Well, that connects to the financial structure of the NBA. When you have good players, as Mark Cuban talked about, when you have maximum contract players and you're not competing, you're pretty much screwed. You can't do anything. You have no flexibility. And the penalties are so high to prevent what's happening in baseball from happening in the NBA, they had to put those rules in. So what they would need is a reworking of that collective bargaining agreement, and players are not going to give up any money. So this is where you run into a stalemate. So Adam Silver is kind of in an impossible situation. I don't think it would have gotten here had David Stern still been in charge, but that's a different conversation.
The thing that I find fascinating about this conversation, and even where I go to my starting point, is the players from LeBron to Kawhi to whomever, they've been taking a lot of heat for load management. And I, listening to what Mark Cuban's saying, listening to what Dre is saying in this conversation, it's like I can't blame the players anymore at all. That they are a reflection of a system that they know intimately better than I do, clearly, because they're involved in it on a day-to-day basis. And so, and again, it's just like Greg Popovich created load management or popularized load management. And I need to quit blaming the players. The decision makers they're just following the the tone set and the strategy of the decision makers, and I need to be more sympathetic towards the players.
Jason, sports mirrors culture and culture mirrors sports. So anyone that comes into this NBA is now conditioned to miss games. In fact, they're legislated to by the organization and the coach. But it reminds me with the belated birthday of the greatest of all time, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. They were showing the Last Dance. I think ESPN2 had a marathon. If you go back to his second year, he missed 63 games after breaking his foot. The Bulls wanted to tank. Michael Jordan flat out said in an interview on TV, said, if we tank, I'm out of here. We are not doing that, not on my watch. You tank the rest of my year, when I'm a free agent, I'm gone. And they said, okay, hold on. So this guy forced his way back onto the court. Fast forward all the way back or all the way forward, he was an old, broken down, chubby version of himself in Washington. The guy still played 82 games as an old man because he felt like that was his duty. But again, he came up in a different culture and time in the NBA and in society.
I'm 100% a fan of that, of Michael Jordan doing that, showing up every day, doing your job. I represent that ethos, and I would suggest everybody else do it at any job. In the world that we're in today, though, as you said, the culture says take some time off. You don't have to work so hard. You don't have to show up every day. You're getting paid anyway. What's the difference?
It part of my, and again, I'm just an old person, is like the Ronnie Lott, hey, let me chop off a little bit of my finger that could keep playing. That's what made me love sports. That's what, and when I think of, I would bet I graduated college in 1990. What is that? So now, have I been out of college 35 years? Yeah, 35, 36 years. I bet you I've missed, if you remove the COVID deal, I bet you if you remove COVID and the week I missed because of COVID, I bet you I've missed 8 days of work because of illness in 35 years. And it's like I took a lot of, I hate the word pride, but I took a lot of satisfaction in that. And I guess I'm like the culture that I grew up in, where like men showed up and did their job without complaint, but it's just dead. And it's the culture's been feminized, and men that have adjusted to the new culture, I just can't understand it. Man, you guys have, Dre, you've blown my mind here. I haven't had one of these moments since, Royce White. Where I'm still like, holy.
Oh, no, that's a good or bad comparison.
It's a good comparison in the way that I'm unpacking it right now. Now, if you one day tape a podcast telling me how to do the show, it'll be bad. But let me keep moving. Man, this was a good conversation. Let me keep moving. There's a couple other things I want to get to. Michael Jordan, Steve kind of already set the stage for a segue into that. He won the Daytona 500. What's the guy's name? Tyler Reddick won. Yeah, Tyler Reddick, his driver won. I want to give you all a little bit of a backstory here, though, about Jordan's win and what's really going on with Michael Jordan, because Sports Business Journal, I think they did a story about how Michael Jordan could be the face of NASCAR and elevate NASCAR and make it more compelling and this, that, and another. And I'm like, I kind of roll my eyes like, is anybody really going to watch to see Michael Jordan watch cars go round and round and round? Is the racial idolatry of black sports fans that significant that, well, Mike's black and he's winning NASCAR races? But there's, because I'm from Indianapolis and grew up a huge IndyCar racing fan because of the Indianapolis 500, I've paid attention to the sport of auto racing since childhood. And even, I was a bit of a NASCAR fan with Cale Yarborough back in the days. But also, I had a friend that was a former college teammate of mine that went into auto racing, Black Duke. And he, big fan of auto racing. And he's always called NASCAR NASCAR. And he says that, NASCAR makes a call and they decide who's going to win races. And there are people that believe like that Michael Jordan, his entry into NASCAR, that this is part of a disruption plan. This is part of a movement that, NASCAR wants to get in the race game, like NBA, and I'm talking about race. I'm talking about the racism, that whole deal. What Tiger Woods did for golf, what the whole racial narrative used to do for boxing. That NASCAR is trying to get into that, and so bringing in Michael Jordan in 2021, making Bubba Wallace, his top driver. And now even they're saying like, man, they wanted Michael Jordan to win this Daytona 500. Michael Jordan was involved in a lawsuit. He sued NASCAR. And so Michael Jordan's there to disrupt. Let me play this news clip that kind of unpacks just a little bit more about Michael Jordan's lawsuit that I think he won in late December, early December. Let's play that, and then we'll have a discussion about Michael Jordan as the face of NASCAR. Play shot 1, I believe.
Just 1 month after NASCAR crowned its 2025 champion, some of the most well-known names in the sport are fighting the organization in federal court. 2311 Racing Team owners Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, who's also one of the top drivers in NASCAR, are suing the premier racing organization, alleging it is violating antitrust laws. The trouble's been brewing for years, but came to a head last September when 13 of the 15 teams in NASCAR signed new charter agreements. A charter in NASCAR is like a franchise in other sports. Being chartered guarantees your car will have a spot in all races and a specified share of revenue. Jordan and Hamlin's 2311 Racing and a second team, Front Row Motorsports, wanted permanent charters and did not sign the new agreement. Their lawsuit alleges NASCAR limits competition through its ownership and control of most racetracks and by banning the use of NASCAR Cup Series cars in other racing events. NASCAR, on the other hand, points to its increasing payouts to drivers as evidence it is acting in good faith and is not anti-competitive.
If NASCAR loses ownership of its tracks, that could mean other racing competitions would be able to use NASCAR tracks for their races. And Hamlin got teary-eyed yesterday talking about how he got into the sport when he took the stand. He will continue his testimony when court resumes today. And Michael Jordan also plans to testify in the trial, which is expected to last about 2 weeks. NASCAR's season starts again in February.
Boy, Michael Jordan on the stand, Adriana, bring your popcorn. I think more people will pay attention just because he's involved with it.
So just let's follow the dots. 2020 is when the speculation starts that Michael Jordan's going to join NASCAR. What else happened in 2020? The summer of George Floyd, the whole racial everything. He joins in 2021. He makes Bubba Wallace his lead driver, and then shortly by 2024, he's the face of a lawsuit trying to change the business of NASCAR. So NASCAR, and if someone wants to disrupt NASCAR and change the business, couldn't get a bigger face than Michael Jordan to be the face of that. And now he wins a race, and immediately afterwards, sports business journals start arguing that, hey, he could be the face of NASCAR. Is this a scheme, and is this going to work, Steve Kim?
I think it's a neat story when you win the biggest race of your franchise or that league. But I know this. I have never watched a sporting event or followed a team because someone owns it or who's in the luxury box. I think that the story this past weekend was big because the Jordan brand, the Jumpman logo is associated with winning. I think we care about it for that weekend. But do I believe that hordes of people who otherwise would never watch a NASCAR race and probably know one guy from 30 years ago like Richard Petty? I basically know him. Now, will I start watching a bunch of guys making left turns over and over again because of Michael Jeffrey Jordan? I would say the answer for me, at least, is no.
Scap, you watching?
Yeah, I have to echo Steve here. I mean, as big of a Jordan guy as anyone. I got duped, Jason, by that ridiculous NBC interview thing. Like, I watched the first, whatever, 2 or 3 that they put out, because I will watch practically anything that involves Michael Jordan. But it's not like he's not going to be playing basketball on a court in the middle of the track. He's not going to be driving the cars himself. Like, what, I've never watched a single racing event in my entire life, and I lived in Florida for like a decade, so I'm in NASCAR country to some degree. I have never been at or watched a single race in my entire life, and I don't think I'm going to start just to, get some cutaways of Michael Jordan smoking a cigar in the box or something? Like, what I don't understand what the mindset is of thinking that Jordan is going to drive viewership at all from people that were Jordan fans to watch race. There's no correlation in my estimation.
He's certainly going to drive conversation, or he did this weekend. Dre, is this Jordan plot? Is it a plot, and will it work?
It could be a plot. It's an interesting question that you're throwing out there, Jason. We would have to see. It'd probably take a few years, 5 to 10 years, to see what actually happens, because what will have to happen is, just as to what Scap and Steve said, we need some actual drivers that would make a fan want to watch the race. I'm not watching a race because the guy is an owner, because, again, he's not doing anything. He's just standing there. And I don't watch racing either, just like Scap said, just like Steve said. So I think it'll take 5 to 10 years to find out.
Yeah.
What Jordan has done to make himself even more popular today, or to maintain that level of interest in him, he's actually become a guy that's like a nomad. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. So anytime you want to get more viewership or more headlines or more clicks, add Jordan to it. Seriously, just add the name Michael Jordan. I think of a guy like me, like, hey, what's going on with him? Because he's not ubiquitous. There's an air of mystery to him. So when his name is brought up in any context, I think naturally there's going to be a group of people that at least give it a peek. But again, to sit around 2.5 hours to watch a Daytona 500 because he has one of the 30 cars, I don't really see that happening.
I think you guys are underestimating the power of the racial narrative in television, over social media. Just for me, I hated golf. Refused to watch it. Tiger Woods showed up, and they got me with the racial narrative and watching history. And you'll never convince me that watching guys swing a club at a little tiny white ball that you can barely see on TV, you can't even really track the flight of it. They got to help you, blah, blah. And we watched that from the edge of our seats. Like, oh, this is crazy. This is unbelievable. This is as exciting as Julius Erving jumping from the free throw line. We got hooked on golf and Tiger Woods doing nothing, really. I mean, and I don't mean that playing golf and having played, it's hard. But we all got hooked on that. It wasn't relatable. It's not that exciting. But the history that Tiger Woods was allegedly making made us all watch.
Yes. But, Jason, he was a participant. I mean, as an Asian, I still hate golf. I couldn't stand Tiger Woods. I thought it was the most overrated story of all time.
You're Asian.
Seriously.
I may have to ask you and Scap to sit out. This is about the racial idolatry of black people.
I agree with you, but he was half Asian. I didn't really
I got
care.
it.
I mean,
I got it.
And by the way, if there was an Asian NASCAR driver that won, I wouldn't believe it. It'd be a lot of car wrecks. It'd probably ruin the races. But let's just be honest about it. There's a difference. Michael Jordan, as a NASCAR, is not a participant. Tiger Woods, at least to his credit, was. I think there's a huge difference there.
Watching Michael Jordan smoke a cigar as cars go round in circles, I'm telling you, the racial idolatry is strong enough that black people may hop on board with that. And really? And the media will hop on board with the racial significance and the history that's being made, that I don't think we're going to be waiting 5 to 10 years. We're going to be waiting 5 to 10 minutes to find out if this is going to work. Go ahead, Scap.
What we really need here is Michael Jordan in these cars. Come on, how hard is it to drive a race car? Give him like 2-3 months, train him up, give him some kind of an advantage. His car's better or faster than everybody else. Have him in the pit, like driving around. I'm tuning into that. We need him in the car. That is my pitch to NASCAR right now. Michael Jordan, 63 years old yesterday, actually. Happy belated, MJ.
Yes.
We need him in the rig, driving these cars around the track. And I'm 100% in on that.
Here's what they're going to do. Michael's not going to drive the cars, but what they're going to start doing is putting 24-inch rims on the car and
Wait a minute.
a big gold chain hanging from the rear view mirror. And they're just going and playing a little rap music as you watch. And Dre, I'm really directing, you're sure that black people aren't going to fall for this. Start making it important on social media, and the next thing you know, everybody's caught up in the racial story here, and it starts driving viewers and interest.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, remember the Bubba Wallace thing, and that was a complete hoax that they made up out of nowhere, and that was using him, and I didn't even know who he was. We know who Michael Jordan is. Now, Michael Jordan starts putting his name behind this racial thing happened, and I think it's because I'm black. We will be talking about it. That's going to be a conversation. Now, if that actually leads to people watching the races is a different question. But if that happens, and what you're throwing out there, Jason, is not implausible, it could happen. If that does happen, then it is going to get people, at least it'll be a segment on every sports show. Everybody will be talking about it. Now, how that translates to people actually getting in race cars or caring about racing is different because, as Steve said, Michael Jordan ain't driving.
Say this. If you started putting the Jordan brand, the Jumpman, on tires, you'd see a lot of people buy those tires. Honestly, there's a hold with that logo that's amazing. But you talk about some of the stereotypes, right?
Put some
Jordan
spokes on them NASCAR
chains.
deals. You got something. I'm just telling you, and show the drivers listening to what's the guy Nipsey Hussle. Last time I checked. And, you do little cutaways, and you got Bubba Wallace bobbing his head. The last time I checked, black people are going to tune in. I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the funny thing is you talk about, like, the stereotypes. Well, the only time I ever saw Jordan wear jewelry was his rookie year when he wore the Jordan sweats for the slam dunk contest. He had, like, 3 gold chains, right? The Mr. T starter set. You talk to people. He doesn't really like hip-hop music, by the way. That's the funniest thing. And so Jordan actually, a lot of those stereotypes did not exist with him. If you actually examine like what he listened to, how he dressed, everything.
I got it. They cut the check. Jordan put the gold chain back on. He still wears the big hoop earring. And I'm gonna move on. Kept you guys longer than I intended, but the conversation has been great. Cam Newton. Cam Newton. Oh, are we bringing Shamika into this, please? I need Shamika for this. Oh, yeah, Shamika is already here. Good.
5 blocks. Cam
Newton had his 106 in Sports show on BET canceled. Somebody finally went too far as it relates to or Cam Newton finally went too far for BET. I mean, when you go too far and BET's like, hey, man, we're canceling your show. Most people are speculating that the show got canceled because of this conversation that Cam had. We're about to play you. Let's play SOT 2.
Do you have any platonic relationships in your life right now?
With a woman?
Yeah.
No.
Is that by choice?
I'm not about to be around no woman platonically. Listen.
We gotta unpack this, Cam. Why?
Because I'm not about to play them type of games.
Is it self-control?
Call it what you want.
I'm asking.
Call it, it may be self-control.
I'm asking.
If she fine, I'm not about to have her around playing like I don't think that she's attractive.
Is it possible to think someone's attractive and still behave yourself?
Yes.
Do you have control of them thoughts?
Yes. But I'm not about to play them games.
What game is it?
The game of saying, hey, we not about to be friends. I don't have good-looking women that's friends around me.
So
no.
Just all the. Do you have any ugly ones? I gotta ask.
I don't even have women friends, bro. Respectfully.
Why? I understand you saying you're not finna play this game, but Cam, you're a smart man. I'm gonna need you to go deeper than that.
Yeah, we're gonna go deep. I know me.
You know you, okay?
I know me.
And what that mean?
That means if I'm around a woman long enough, I'm going to find something good in her that attracts me.
Okay, and when you're attractive, what then happens? When you're attracted, what then happens?
Sex.
Oh, God damn, Cam. Cam, this is a bigger issue than I thought we had here.
So understanding that I know what's to come from a platonic situation, I don't even play. No, I don't do that. Baby, you too fine for me. We're not doing that.
Interesting.
No.
So, okay. If I take the word friendship off of the table, do you have platonic relationships in your life that involve women?
I just told you, I don't have no attractive woman that I'm cool with that I do not have plans on stabbing.
Woo.
I don't know. Shamika, I'm gonna let ladies go first here. I like the use of the word platonic. That's actually clever. I don't like the use of the word stabbing. That's an idiot. Your reaction to Cam Newton?
First, Jason, I want to say I just realized that his end tables were upside down wine glasses. So nice. What he had to say was stupid, though. He just told every major network or anyone that would back his show that he doesn't have the discipline to work with women who may be attractive. That was the dumbest thing that he could do, in my opinion, for his brand. That was the silliest thing he could say for any woman that he would ever be in a relationship with. If you see me around another woman and she's attractive, I plan on stabbing her. That's just really silly. I'm not really offended by the word stabbing because there was MC Brains back in my day who they had a rap and they talked about stabbing the womb. That doesn't really affect me at all. But I just thought it was silly to say that you don't have the discipline really to work around attractive women. I'm the only woman really on this team, and we are around each other all the time. Whether there's any type of attraction, I don't know, but we have a platonic relationship. I have a really close friend. We've been friends since I was 13 years old. Nothing has ever happened between us. So I just think it's silly. I know that this is a conversation that men have all the time, but I hate the idea that men and women can't be friends without it going a different way. I just think that's silly.
I think this is the first time I've ever thought like, man, that's a naive take by Shamika. But that is where I'm landing the plane a little bit. I'm going to have to marinate a little bit more. But Dre, I'm going to save you for last because I have no idea what you might say or what your reaction is. Let me let Skap and Steve get in here. Skap, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible take by Cam, and I'm shocked that he said it on TV and went on record and into such detail. But I'm going to say this right now. That was highly entertaining for my purposes. I want more. Why did they cancel this show? I didn't even know BET still existed. If he were still on, I might go out, find some provider where I can get BET so I can watch more of Cam Newton. I want to see more of this idiocy. I mean, that was good. I was dying during that entire thing. I can't believe he was canceled for that. I mean, seriously, can we start a petition right here on Fearless? Can we please ask your watchers right now to sign some kind of a whatever online petition to bring back Cam Newton? Hashtag save Cam Newton. That's where I want to start it right now.
Steve?
I'm kind of with Skap, and I have not watched BET since the last prime of Donnie Simpson and Video Vibrations. Look, doesn't he have like 9 kids with 8 women? I mean, the guy's been stabbing more than OJ for years. At least he's not being a hypocrite. The guy's being honest. You got to know who you are. And I think that was entertaining. I think that was funny. And by the way, to BET's point, what did you think you were getting? I mean, don't we always talk about we want honesty, we want authenticity? Well, he's telling you who he is. Jason. I look, I know the thing about Cam, my guy. You almost got me like getting beat up by a Heisman Trophy winner last year, Jason. My God, what a milestone in my life, right? But you know what? I kind of liked it. And be who you are, because if he was talking about chastity, we'd all be saying, what a GD hypocrite. I respect that honesty.
All right, Dre, what your thoughts?
There was a rapper named Shine who was signed with P. Diddy and Bad Boy years ago. He went to jail for many years, came out, put out a song that was terrible. And it was your friend, Jason, Charlemagne the God, who said something very important. He said, record, but don't release. And what happened here with Cam Newton is, first of all, his co-host did not do him any favors because his co-host kept asking him more and more leading questions. And what Cam did right there harkens to what Coach JB said on your show, I believe last week. When it becomes content over everything, eventually you get conversations like this where you're going to say things that you get a Pyrrhic victory. Because what Cam said there, a lot of young black men who like Cam probably loved what he said because they're thinking the same thing and they wish they could be in a position where they could say something like that out loud. The problem is Cam is in corporate America now. He's dealing with corporate dollars. And as Shamika said, what he said is going to hurt where he's going, but it will make him popular with where he's been. So this is a bad idea by Cam on a professional level, but on a quote unquote street level, content level, this won him a lot of fans. But I don't know if that is going to matter for him moving forward.
Yeah, Cam just said that, hey, I have no discipline and I have no control of my lust. He's really telling on himself. And I don't blame BET, even if because I don't think he said this on their airways, but I don't blame them for doing this because what Cam has basically said is like, if you see me working with any female employee, coworker, whatever, she can accuse me of sexual harassment. And I'm on tape basically saying, look, I have no control of myself. And so I would sexually harass her. Where I do agree with Cam, I think there is some truth to what he's saying. And realization, it's like, you have to be very intentional because there's been, Shamika's been working with me from the outset here. Tiffany joined shortly afterwards. And I had very intentional conversations about like, hey, look, this is the way I'm going to behave. It's more about me than you. And I'm telling you this up front so that you'll understand why I may appear cold and distant and not warm and fuzzy. And it's about protecting myself and making sure that, I'm above reproach in that regard. So let me just put it out into the air. You're attractive. I'm going to be distant and a bit aloof because, if I'm not, I could make mistakes. And so, there's a lack of maturity because Cam is saying it while kind of bragging and being lighthearted about it rather than being mature and intentional. And it's better if you are mature and intentional. It puts the woman in a spot where she can succeed and where she could actually develop a friendship with you. But Cam hasn't reached that level of maturity. He's a very immature person that, again, as Steve has said, I think he's got 8 kids, 4 or 5 baby mamas. He has no discipline. But Shamika, I want to give you a second shot. Not that you need to make up, but just if you had some additional thoughts you wanted to say here.
Well, Jason, what I heard you say was that you lust after me. I mean, that's what I heard. I don't know if anybody else got that tape. I didn't know I was today
I'm not
years
commenting.
old.
I'm not commenting. Go. You have any other thoughts? Any more serious? Any less dangerous thoughts that you'd like to express?
Yeah, no, I hate that conversation. I see it so much over social media, and I think it just does damage to trust and relationships because, especially for someone my age, like we're really close to people that we went to school with. I'm really close to people of the opposite sex. And I just hate the conversation that so many people say, hey, I lack discipline and I can't do this. I think people would more listen to you and learn some type of wisdom to know how to navigate life and navigate experiences, because you're going to be in spaces with people of the opposite sex if you're in the workforce. And so I think it would be better for young people to learn how to navigate, opposed to listening to Cam and thinking, oh yeah, I can't do this. It's just so silly to me. And I want people to grow up.
Dre, I know like you give businesses and people advice. If you're having that conversation with Cam, what advice would you give him?
I would say to him that it maybe he was being honest. Sounds like he was being honest. And on his own show, he can talk however he wants. And I believe that guy's the same co-host he always has when he's in the studio standing up. That's the same guy?
No, it's not the same guy.
That's a different guy? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I believe Cam was being honest. And in the podcasting space, when you have your own platform or you're on somebody else's own platform, you can be as honest as you want to be. And like I said, if I was talking to Cam, yes, you were being honest, but that's a conversation you have off camera, especially given where he's trying to go, because you talked about this a couple weeks ago. He's talked about how certain quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers is getting this chance to maybe be a coach, and Matt Ryan goes and works with the Atlanta Falcons. And hey, I was an MVP, I was a Heisman Trophy winner. Where's my call at? Well, when you put stuff out like this, Cam, what are you asking for? You're trying to go into the corporate world. You're trying to go into that door over there, the corporate world. You just told the whole world that anytime I'm around a woman, if she's attractive, I'm going to try to have sex with her. And if I'm not trying to have sex with her, I don't want to deal with her at all. Well, how can we hire you to come work at our company, especially in the corporate environment we have now with the Me Too and all of that stuff? How are they going to let him in? Now, in the world that he came from, the sports world, locker room culture, locker room talk, that sounds great. With the young under 40 black men who look up to Cam and attack you for questioning Cam, maybe attack us for having this segment, they love what he just said. But again, who are you trying to serve? You trying to serve those people where you're from? You trying to serve these people where you're trying to go? So this was a bad idea for him not to think it, not to even believe it, but to publish it. Putting it out there was the bad idea. Same thing that we are talking about on a parallel level with the Mark Cuban conversation.
Lady, gentlemen, awesome job. Thank you so much. I got to get to Danny Kanell. He's very temperamental. He's very diva-like whenever I'm late, and I'm late. So let's, when we come back, Danny Kanell will join me. X. Well,
that's why I won't ever buy an electric car. It's anti-American to buy an electric vehicle. You drive one, don't you?
Hell.
I'm about to say, the more liberal stuff starts to come out with you.
I drive a Prius.
You go Fernando Mendoza first, the crybaby. You like all these coaches crying.
Prius. I pulled up in butter, and then they squeeze me into a Prius. You don't drive no damn. And I'm out.
You don't drive no Prius.
I'm very gas conscious.
You're gonna come out. There's a big stigma out there. You know, I tell Smitty every day. Brothers don't like water. Brothers don't like dogs. Are you going to come out on the yacht with Marcellus and I? Because Marcellus comes out.
I definitely don't do that. I'm not going to be a part of no drowning.
Marcellus is like real conservative brothers go on the water like Marcellus does. And Willie McGinnis does. And they all want to, they come out to the boat all the time with me.
See, they don't have, there's a bounty on my head, JB. Y'all get me out there on a boat. You remember what they did to Big Pussy Pompacero and the Scarface when they got him out on a boat?
But Willie and Marcellus ain't doing that to you. They like you.
Who did it to Big Pussy? His main guys. I'm suspicious of all of you.
These words are our religion, no regrets in our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
All right, welcome back. Time for a little Danny Kanell. Danny, we started the show. We've been talking about Mark Cuban defending NBA tanking and basically saying that, look, man, this isn't about competition. This is about creating an experience for fans. It's a night out. It's a social event. Your reaction to an NBA owner, former NBA owner, spelling out what many people have believed, that like, man, this isn't about competition. This is just about entertainment.
I think he's off base. I think it's interesting that you hear a guy who has had as much influence as he has on the sport of basketball, as being an owner. He's been one of the more vocal owners. He's got a brand. I think he's off base. I mean, he makes the case and says when people go to sporting events, they don't remember the shots. They don't remember who won or lost. They just remember who they were with. I was at the Florida State Bama game this year. I was there with my 2 daughters. It was a lifetime experience. But you know what I remembered? I remembered Florida State winning the game when they weren't supposed to. And we got to storm the field because they won the game. I think he's completely missing the point here. I think fans of any sports team want to watch a winner. I think they want to know that your team is trying to win. He says our fans appreciated. He said in 23 years, we've only tanked a couple times, but look at what it brought us. And we got Luka because of it. If you polled Dallas Mavericks fans, I would not know how many of them appreciated the losing years that it took. So I think it's an interesting theory. I think he's off base on it. I think it would be highly risky. I think you would risk losing a lot of fans. But I think why can't you have both? Why can't you try to compete to win and have a great fan experience for your fan base?
Well, I'm going to cut deeper on his comments. I don't think it's theory. I think he's expressing the reality from an owner's perspective. I think he's giving us a peek into the mindset of the ownership class in professional sports. And this isn't about competition. This is about creating an experience for casual fans. I think everybody's in agreement. They hate hardcore sports fans. The athletes seem to hate them. Ownership doesn't care about them. And again, they're just no, this is for casuals. What he's saying is this is a corporate experience. The Ford executives are hosting social events. Whatever the major corporations in bed with these leagues, this is just a corporate function, social gathering, team building deal. It's not about competition. Mark Cuban wants to re-own the Mavericks. I think he's saying this because the NBA, it's like it's like a trial balloon being floated out there. Let's tell them the truth, what this is, and we'll see how it goes. We'll have someone important, Mark, who's not a current owner, float this out there. We'll see how it lands. And, I think it's part of the process of Mark Cuban becoming an NBA owner again and getting control of the Mavericks.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. Going back to the fan experience, I mean, I guess, do ticket sales even matter for NBA owners, or is it all from the TV deals? Do they care about ticket sales?
No, I don't.
Right.
I don't think NFL owners. I don't think Major League Baseball owners. I don't think any of it's these streaming deals and TV deals are so rich. The relationships with the shoe companies, again, competition and the essence of sports has been removed. It's just not about that.
Did you watch the Cowboys piece on the piece on Netflix with Jerry Jones?
Yes.
And he basically said the same thing. He was like, it's an entertainment business. And he was like, we're in this for entertainment. And he built up the Cowboys. Now, they were already a brand, but he's built them into the most talked about brand. They haven't won a Super Bowl since the early 90s, haven't had much playoff success either. He essentially admitted the same thing. I mean, now I think Jerry Jones is somebody who wants to win, and I don't think you can tank.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
But he was like, we're in this for entertainment. I think that was like one of the bigger things that I think people took away. Now, I think he's like me. I think he wants both. I think he wants to have a brand that's talked about, that has packed stands, but I also think he's a competitor who wants to win.
So I'm going to connect this to NBA load management. When you hear this from ownership, why wouldn't the players mirror that mentality? Hey, this competition's not that important. And so if I need to take a few nights off, 15, 20 nights off a week, a season, it's just not that big of a deal because this isn't a competitive league in reality. It's just entertainment. And sometimes the superstars need a night or two off or 15 or 20. I don't think we should. This, to me, gives the players, as it relates to load management, it gives them an out. They're reflecting a mentality of ownership.
I'll tell you, as somebody who grew up loving the NBA, now I grew up in Michael Jordan, I grew up on Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and the great, players that we saw play 80-plus games. They missed a couple, and it was for legitimate injuries. They have lost me over the last 5 to 10 years, and I do not care. I don't pay attention. I used to record the slam dunk contest, so I could go back and watch it over, and I would watch it on repeat. Like, I'd watch it before games to get hyped up. And what we just saw was probably the worst slam dunk competition in the history of it. I mean, it just keeps getting worse. But I do think this mentality has crept in, and I do think it comes from not only the owners, but the NBA leaders, guys like LeBron, who have allowed this to go on under their watch, that it's become acceptable. Now, what I was always told when Greg Popovich, remember when he was at the Spurs and they'd have the East Coast trips, and he'd say he wouldn't sometimes even bring them on the East Coast trip. So you stay home, you make sure you're rested. Or when it was Kawhi Leonard sitting a lot, when he was with the Raptors, it was, well, we're trying to get to the promised land, right? So who cares about the regular season? We want you fresh for the playoffs. But if you start losing players and I think this has absolutely happened, that it's either become the cool, trendy thing to do, or it's become just accepted practice. Like, if no one holds you accountable, players will walk all over you every single time because they view it like a job. I mean, they do. And this is one thing I've always found fascinating when you talk to sports fans. Like, they all think, oh, this is their dream job. They must love going to work every day. They all don't. Like, if you told a lot of Americans, hey, you don't have to go to work, you can take 20, 30% of your time off, and we're not going to fire you. Guess what they'll do? They'll only show up 70% of their work days because they're still going to get paid, and it really doesn't affect the bottom line of their paycheck. So until something like that happens, I think it's just the land that the NBA is living in, which is something I don't want to support or watch when I don't think the players give a crap about who wins. They're just worried about the brand deals, the shoe deals, the mega contracts. And, oh, yeah, by the way, we'll show up and play, and we'll try hard in the fourth quarter maybe.
Danny, let me personalize it, maybe make it a tiny bit more uncomfortable for you. I think this mentality is in the NFL. It's different, but it's why Roger Goodell is sitting there like, hey, man, we can do an 18-game schedule. Everybody with a brain, from me to Coach JB to anybody watching, like, hey, man, the NFL product isn't the same as it used to be. And the competition is getting de-emphasized, and we've made it easier for the player. And Roger Goodell's looking at that and saying, yeah, let's add more. Let's devalue. Let's create less scarcity. And so let's go to an 18-game schedule. And again, no one cares about the actual competition or the quality of play. It's the
no
NFL.
One cares as far as the player or the fans or both.
Ownership doesn't care in the NFL about the quality of play and the competition. Players have bought into the mentality that they're all victims of this highly dangerous game where I risk my life every time I go out and play. They've bought the hype that they keep selling, that everybody's the next Darryl Stingley, when we know statistically it's like police brutality. There's been one Darryl Stingley, Damar Hamlin, was injured for a second, but everybody feels like, oh man, every time I take the field, I may be pulled over by the police and killed, and I may be hit in the way. It's just not. And so they bought the mentality like, hey, what I'm doing is so dangerous and it's unappreciated, that the players also have the mentality of, I'm doing you all a favor. Aren't you entertained? Who cares if, there's the play with Chris Jones, the Chiefs defensive line. Remember when he laid down on the field and didn't go after Trevor Lawrence?
Yep.
putting that on tape in my era, I mean, you were afraid of what you'd put on practice tape because the coaches would jump you, for loafing in practice, let alone getting in a game and just doing that. It's incredible. But yeah, I think competition's being de-emphasized everywhere.
I agree. And I think the money has ruined it. Because I think the NFL actually had one of the reasons they had the best product when I was playing 20 years ago was because you did not have guaranteed contracts. And I remembered having these discussions, and as a player, yeah, you love guaranteed contracts because then all of a sudden you don't have to deliver. You don't have to perform every single week. Every single year you could be cut and you're done. The guaranteed money, and it is, sure, there's only a handful of players who have fully guaranteed contracts. But, I mean, look at what happened with the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa. Like, the amount of money they're going to have to pay to cut him because they know they're not going to go on his future. Kyler Murray's another one. Like, these players have made so much money that it really does become impossible to cut him, or else you're really going to go against it during the salary cap. But that infusion of money, which is a good thing for the players, has actually hurt the competitive nature on the field because you don't have that pressure to deliver week in and week out. I mean, I remember when Jimmy Johnson was the Dolphins, he came into the Dolphins and Marino was the quarterback, and they had a lot of veterans on there. And my dad worked with the Dolphins at the time. And he was telling me, man, Jimmy's coming in here and he's threatening everybody's jobs up and everybody's competing. And you had to respect that. You had to, because if you didn't, guess what? Jimmy Johnson was going to cut you. He would say, see you later. Now, you can't do that because you have to be aware of everybody's contract status. You just have to pay attention to it. Some of these players still have, years left, and their signing bonus was 20 or 30 million. So it's just too cost prohibitive to cut them. So you better figure it out. And then you do allow. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where player gets a new contract and he kind of takes a year off because he can kind of coast because he doesn't have to deliver for a few years. And I think it's becoming more rare, sadly, which hurts the competition, the true competitor who just wants to be great. I want to be the greatest of all time. Think of a Tom Brady, or Drew Brees or a Peyton Manning. There's just quarterbacks out there. There are some football players that want to do it too, other non-quarterbacks. But sadly, the reality is most of the guys are just securing the bag, and whatever it takes to do that is what they're going to do. I mean, I played with players, and there was that kind of a conversation in the room was, how much is it going to take? Like, how much do you want in the bank to be able to retire? And at the time, it depended on position. I remember talking to offensive linemen who hated football. They did not want to go through the grind and just just every practice, it'd be like $5 million. As soon as I get $5 million, I'm done. Now it's probably 50 with the amount of money these players are making. But it's always been a conversation. But at the time, you had to perform more to get that number. And now you can secure that number pretty early. And if they do cut you, you're fine. I'll just retire and go off into the sunset. So it has diluted the competitive mindset, I think, in sports.
It's interesting to hear you say that in your playing days, in the locker room, when all the conversation was about guaranteed contracts, that you and maybe some others were on the other side where you could see, man, I can understand why they're not guaranteeing these contracts. It would hurt the competition. You were making that argument in real time during your playing days?
Yeah, but it wasn't one. It was actually after I played that I think I appreciate it more. Once I was in broadcast, when I was on radio, because I was a player rep, there was no way you could say that, hey, the NFL's got a great thing going by not guaranteeing these contracts. And as a player, I signed a 3-year, $12 million deal with the New York Giants. That was that was my first big contract, in air quotes. I only saw the first year of that. I only saw $3 million from that. I would have loved to have gotten the other 9, sure. But that's just the reality of what it was at the time. So as a player, I get there's a give and take. But I think overall, as a product, the amount of guaranteed money and the size of the contracts, you can't argue against it. I do think it's hurt the competitive nature of the sport because guys are too comfortable and they're financially too well off. And so I think it has hurt it. That's one of the things, that was one of the things I noticed about college football. The big difference, the jump, was when I played college football. Now, again, this is creeping into college football all over the place as well. When I played, guys wanted to just play for Florida State. You wanted to be a part of a legacy. You wanted to be part of a team that brought a national championship to Florida State. And then when I went to the NFL, definitely noticed a major shift in mindset. I'll never forget if we lost a game at Florida State, it was a morgue in the locker room. The week of practice sucked. You were embarrassed to go around campus. You didn't want to talk to anybody. It was just you were in a bad mood because you lost. Let alone, we didn't think about going out publicly. We might hang out in the dorm room and have a couple drinks, but I didn't want to be seen out partying after a loss. I would have been embarrassed. Then I go to the NFL. I remember our first loss, come in and it was a little bit quieter, but we're done with press and a couple of guys come up like, where are we going tonight? Where are we going? I was like, you guys are doing stuff tonight? Like, we just lost. Like, yeah, why wouldn't we? It's just a mindset, and it becomes very much more you're punching in for work. Again, it goes back to the conversation, how it is similar to people that have jobs. Like, some people love their jobs and would go above and beyond. A lot of Americans probably aren't. They do it because they have to put food on the table, and you don't love what you do. It's kind of that way in the NFL for some guys too. And that was the major shift that I saw, was the professional mindset, where it is punching in. And sure, if you win, great. If you lose, not the end of the world. Like, hey, I'm still going to cash the check and we can still go about business as usual. And I do think that mindset, that comfortability, the comfort that fortune brings you, it does hurt the competitive product.
I want to move on. Speaking of guaranteed money, a little bit. Kyler Murray. He's the big question this offseason. Which team is going? Does he have trade value? Does he just have value as a starting quarterback? A lot of people focused in on the Minnesota Vikings, people jumping off the J.J. McCarthy bandwagon. Do you think Kyler Murray makes sense for the Minnesota Vikings?
He is an electric player. He has a ton of skills. We are dealing with injuries here lately, but I would not go anywhere close to Kyler Murray unless I had a personal conversation with him and I saw somebody who had changed, right? We talk about growing up and maturing, but one of the biggest red flags I think I've ever seen was when the Arizona Cardinals gave him the new contract and they had a clause in there that required him to watch 4 hours of game tape. That was it. 4 hours of game tape. That is the minimum amount. And then there was the backlash and they took it out because everybody's like, how could you do this? I do think, and I've talked to some people in the Arizona Cardinals organization that have said his work habits weren't great. And this is coming from somebody who myself, I did not have the best work habits. Like, I didn't realize, we talked a little bit about this, I didn't realize what it took to be a franchise quarterback until it's too late. But I do think there are other quarterbacks, and we've seen everyone's looking for the next Sam Darnold or the next Baker Mayfield or the next guy who's going to be the late bloomer. And maybe it is Kyler Murray. But if I don't know that he's grown up and learned from it, because there is a possibility that he's looked at it and said, man, I have lost this opportunity. I want to throw everything I can into this sport. I'm going to prepare like a pro. And if he does, then maybe there is a landing spot for him. But without that assurance, and this is really hard because I guarantee you he's going to say all these things. He's going to tell you he's going to work hard, but your actions speak way louder than words. But I would not sign him to a mega deal. I wouldn't give him much guaranteed money. But if the contract was right and I felt like his mindset was right, I would give him a shot. But I do think there are some significant red flags from his past that I would want to be assured that he had grown up and matured into what it takes to be an NFL starting quarterback.
I think the other red flag beyond, the clause in the contract, which is a definite red flag. But the other one is, I think he has shown a tendency to frame himself up as a victim and that he's treated unfairly and that, there's a little racial component to how he's treated. And so will he take responsibility for his failure in Arizona? I don't think there's a chance. I think his mentality is, man, I was mistreated. They didn't do this. I had this many offensive coordinators. They fired Cliff Kingsbury, blah, blah. It's going to be all a bunch of excuses. Whereas Sam Darnold, maybe he feels all those things, but he overcame that feeling, and just everything about him was like, hey, man, I got a chance at redemption. I got a second opportunity. I just think Kyler Murray's mindset, and I'm sorry for being this blunt, but that little person mentality, the Napoleon syndrome, the height deal, and Danny, you're like 6'3", so I know you can't relate this or you've seen it. But the little guy syndrome, chip on the shoulder, I didn't hit the genetics lottery, that mentality creates a victim mentality that I think could undermine Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it probably took me a while. There was a piece of me, I'm sure, that when I got cut from the Giants that felt like, man, I got screwed. And I do wish I had another year. I think maybe I would have grown up and played out my way out of it potentially. But I also didn't work as hard as I could have. I could have blamed the offensive line. I could have blamed, we didn't have a great wide receiver that was what we call now like your one or your true one, not wide receiver. But I looked at it and was like, no, I screwed this up. Like I think personal accountability is something that's there. And if Kyler Murray is making those kind of comments, I would not touch him, because guess what he's going to do in your building? He's not going to take any personal accountability, and he's not going to take any ownership, and you're just going to see the same cycle continue. So that is a significant warning sign for me. And he does. There are a lot of excuses, but there's also a lot of mistakes that he's made personally that I would want to hear at least some accountability, because every smart person knows, and we've seen over the course of history, like the NFL draft, yes, it's who's the most talented, but it's also who gives the best surroundings. Drake May in his first year looked awful. Second year gets a better coaching staff, gets a Josh McDaniel, and he all of a sudden takes off. Like, that's the same player in the same environment, with a different environment, and all of a sudden you see him able to reach his potential, but you also have to have some personal accountability.
I'll end it on a personal note that you don't have to react to, but it took me, I think, 10 years after graduating Ball State for me to realize that I blew my Ball State football career, that I could have been a really, really good Ball State player, could have been a 4-year starter, and, could have been an all-conference type player. I'm the reason why I'm a 2-year letterman, that, I didn't make all-conference. It was all me. It took me 10 years. I was in my 30s before I finally started like, oh, wow, look at the mistakes I made. So I'm not saying that I'm any different than Kyler Murray. So let me move on. What do you think of the Jaguars committing to Travis Hunter as a full-time cornerback?
So it's probably necessary. I have to do a little bit of eating crow, I guess, because I thought he was the generational talent that could do both. The only thing I would say, and I'll give a lot of credit to Booger McFarland, because I talked to Booger about this before the draft and while he was coming out. If his size is an issue, because he's not really big and strapping, right? He's a little bit on the skinnier side. I wonder if DB is the right position. If he should be more of a receiver, and that should be the position he focuses on, because you can move around a receiver. You can put him in the slot. You can put him in motion. But I do think playing him at 1 for the foreseeable future until he gets comfortable and really owns his craft and becomes the best one that he can be, I do think it's probably the smart thing that the Jags are at least making this recognition and admitting, hey, I know we said we made this move and we went up and got the number 2 pick because he could do both, and you're getting 2 players in one. I do think after 1 year, they're realizing just how hard it is. And this is probably a best move for Travis Hunter's future, as to say, let's own one side of the ball first before we start flirting with 2.
Given the success they had this season, and, Liam Cohen doing a great job and, seems to be very competent, I can't believe that after going through training camp, off-season program, first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, that they don't know what Travis's best position is. You've had him in practice. You've seen, again, I just can't believe they're wrong. I'm someone that always thought he was a cornerback, and I know he won't be the most physical cornerback, but I just think he's an elite cover corner in whether zone or man. And so I just that their other receivers revealed themselves this year, and Travis Lawrence. Is it Travis Lawrence? Did I screw? Trevor Lawrence. Why am I saying Dre? Yeah, Trevor Lawrence I knew when it was coming. I'm like, there's no Travis Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had so much success without him. Why would you rock the boat when these other receivers have revealed themselves?
I'm bummed about it. I'm somebody who tried to play two sports through college. Like, I love when you let athletes be athletes. I love the story of Shohei Ohtani. It's probably my favorite one. I've often wondered, like, how many guys do we miss out on? Like a Dave Winfield, who could have been a multi-sport athlete, multi-position player, but the old guard says you can only play one. Maybe, I think subliminally, I wanted this to work and see somebody rock the system, but it does take somebody exceptionally special that can do both.
Yeah, and I don't know if that person's been around since Newt Rockney or
right, they may not.
It's been a long time. Tyreek Hill, coming off this injury, I'm shocked that he's talking about playing this year. I just kind of assumed he was done for a multitude of reasons. One, he's made a lot of money. Two, his attitude and behavior are so erratic that if he can't run a 4.240, what's the purpose of Tyreek Hill? Do you think Tyreek Hill's worth the risk?
Absolutely not. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan too, so I've seen it firsthand, whether it was getting pulled over on the way to the game, which became a national storyline when it could have been resolved a lot simpler. I know that's a controversial statement, but if he would have just rolled the window down, given the license or registration, everything would have been fine, but it didn't go fine. As somebody who sat down with him, I remember I was doing a training camp thing with SiriusXM, and so I sat down with Tyreek Hill, and he was talking, and this was the year they had the big expectations. They had just lost to Kansas City in the cold weather game. They were projected to make the playoffs again. They were going to break the drought, and I was like, what are your goals for the season? And he talked a little bit about football, but then he said, I want to be the best father that I possibly can to my kids. And he was telling me the story, and I was like, oh. And then, like, within the next couple months, I find out how many different women he's got pregnant. I'm like, well, how are you going to be this great father if you can't even be with them all at the same time? Like, there was this dynamic that was unfolding where I just don't think, it's always, is the juice worth the squeeze? At this point in his career, I do not think Tyreek Hill is worth the squeeze. And I think that's why the Dolphins cut him. I think they were tired of it. And I think it's a buyer beware type situation for whatever team Tyreek goes to.
Biggest red flag on Tyreek Hill was his willingness to leave Patrick Mahomes. You could, with his speed and Patrick Mahomes' arm and having had the playoff success, I would have left Kansas City kicking and screaming. I would have bent over backwards trying to partner with Patrick Mahomes and become the greatest quarterback wide receiver combination in NFL history. That, again, if you're not wise enough to see, maybe I'll take a little less money and go down in history as the Jerry Rice and Joe Montana of this era and see how much value. If you're not wise enough to see that, you're just not very wise. I wouldn't touch Tyreek Hill. Danny, this is a curveball that we didn't tell you beforehand that I was going to ask, but I was just sitting here. I got to ask Danny about Christian Faria calling Deion Sanders dumb. And I don't have a problem with it. There are super talented athletes. There's been a cliche or stereotype about dumb jocks for as long as I can remember. And I used to be a really, really dumb jock. And so it doesn't bother me, but most people are melting down, or many people are melting down, and how could Christian say this? And Deion's black, and it's racism, and, didn't you see when he went 9-4? How can that guy be dumb? Anyway, your thoughts.
So I know Christian pretty well. We've done a couple things together at both CBS and ESPN. He's worked at both. He does have a personal connection to the school, where he also had a son who was there with Deion for a minute before transferring out. So he obviously is pretty familiar with the program. I've had a couple friends now who have had sons who have played for Deion, and the reports that come back are not exactly glowing. in how they felt their son was treated, just to how the program was run. I've talked to other people who have worked with Colorado in broadcasting who came away less than impressed with the structure, of the program, the way meetings run. If you look at the turnover on the staff, there's been a lot of turnover on the staff. There's been a lot of turnover on the roster. You don't have to be a genius to look at all this and say, there's something off. There's something off here. And I think the thing that's off is Deion, the way that he's gone about running this program, where it was celebrated early because I'm going to treat these guys like pros. And if they don't work for me, I'm going to cut them. We're going to cut guys. Yeah, you better come on. You better deliver. And then it was, I'm going to turn over this roster every year. The only season he's won has been with his son, who was a really, really good college quarterback, and Travis Hunter, who was one of the best players we've seen in college football. Outside of that, I don't know why you would how could you make a counter argument to say that Deion's been a great coach or he's been brilliant? I mean, we could list off at least 5 either halftime or late game situations where the clock management has looked incredibly shady. There was the game in overtime when Deion didn't know the rules. That was against Colorado State, I believe that game was. That was in the year with Shador. So, what's the counter? You wanted to, where's the great genius mastermind that would be the opposite of this argument? So, I get you could throw out the racism claims, but you have to come with some evidence that proves them wrong. And there's not a lot of evidence to prove that Deion has been a great, highly intellectual coach as far as football IQ goes.
No, he's not Kirk Cignetti. I'll just summarize it there. He's not quite Nick Saban. And look, there are coaches. Ed Orgeron was probably not a genius, but he was able to lead LSU to a national championship with charisma and a personality and the right support around him. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a successful head coach. Bobby Bowden was probably not a rocket scientist, but he had a set of values that he leaned into and believed in that created a structure at FSU that allowed him to win. Deion just, the things, putting yourself on tape. I said this yesterday to Matt McChesney, but putting yourself on tape, meeting with the team for the first time and telling people to leave, I'm bringing Louis luggage, there was never a moment where that was smart. It was just all arrogance and bravado. And now we get to the other side of it 3 years later, and there's all these players that he kicked out and told to leave that are headed to the NFL Combine, went to other schools and had great success. That was never a smart move. And there were people that could see it from the get-go. Danny, final thought, and I'm going to let you go.
It's a huge year for Deion Sanders coming up. I don't even think we talked a little bit about this. I just wonder how bad it gets after the season. New athletic director was just brought in January. I think we're going to have buyout conversations at the end of the season. I think that's probably the most likely situation, that it gets even more uncomfortable and bolder, and you're having conversations, can they afford the buyout? I like him for college football because it starts a lot of conversation. It's a lot of, it brings a lot of attention to the game. But no one was talking about him this past year because they were losing. And unfortunately, I think that's probably going to be the same thing this season.
Thank you, Danny. Great job as always. Appreciate it. When we come back, I'll be joined by Pastor Corey Brooks, the rooftop pastor. He's doing the Walk Across America. He's from Chicago, and he was inspired by Jesse Jackson. And we'll listen to, I'll ask Pastor Corey Brooks about his feelings on Jesse Jackson and his passing.
So we see it with our counterparts all the time. Merit does not equal promotion. So all I'm saying is there something to it? Is it strictly just one thing? Probably not. But there's something to it, Jason. And you can disagree, but you're wrong.
Sean, you're acting like white guys don't sit around and have discussions about black people that they feel like had inferior qualifications and got promotions on jobs or promotions or positions in corporations or anywhere where they felt like, well, man, that wasn't based on merit. Again, the argument you're making can be made both ways. White people are sitting around, man, that black person got that job without merit. Black people are sitting around saying white people got that job without merit.
I think the outcomes in this particular instance seem to be skewed drastically to one side as opposed to the other.
All right, welcome back. Time for to check in on Pastor Corey Brooks, who's walking across America, and there's good timing to this conversation, and good timing, that's probably not the right word, but Jesse Jackson's passing in the news cycle, passed away yesterday. Jesse Jackson, of course, is Rainbow Push organization based in Chicago. Corey Brooks, the rooftop pastor, based in Chicago. Corey, you wrote a piece, I believe, talking about your relationship or how Jesse Jackson inspired you. Walk us through that. What are your? We had a big conversation on Harmony yesterday about how we should feel about Reverend Jesse Jackson's legacy. What are your thoughts?
You know, it was 1987. I was a senior in high school, and I knew God had called me to preach, but I hated preachers, did not want to be a preacher. But in 1988, when I heard Jesse Jackson speak, that inspired me tremendously. For the first time, I really saw a preacher do something outside of the pulpit, which I knew I wanted to do. And hearing his speech, planted seeds in me to let me know that, hey, maybe I can be a preacher. Maybe I can go to law school. Maybe I can run for Senate. Maybe I can be a different type of a preacher because I'd never seen a preacher like that. And so that's what I think that seed being planted kind of helped push me over the edge and say, you know what, I'm going to accept my calling and go after what God called me to do. I later learned a little later that our philosophies were quite different, though. And once I got in Ball State and started learning political science, I realized I was a conservative. I was a Republican, quite different than what Jesse Jackson was saying. So although he inspired me, our philosophies have been drastically different.
I unpacked it yesterday that Jesse Jackson is a cautionary tale about what politics can actually do to your faith. That I read a piece that Jesse wrote in 1977 that was against abortion, and it's a powerful piece of writing. It's biblically sound, and then that's what he's saying in 1977. But in order to be in good standing in the Democratic Party, you have to support abortion. You have to support same-sex marriage, and so I see it, whether it's right or left politics, whether it's Republican or Democrat, politics can walk you away from your Christian values. What's your response to that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think when you read some of his earlier writings and hear some of his earlier preaching and speeches, you would think, oh, this guy is a conservative. But as time gradually went on and as he was more pulled into the Democratic Party, you start seeing him become more left-leaning and his speeches become more liberal, all the way to the point now to it's almost progressive. So you have to be very careful to make sure that your biblical stance do not get pulled to the world's way of living. And I think in some instances that happens to a lot of people. I pray every single day that I'm able to stay biblically sound. I just talked with our staff today, and I was talking to them about systematic theology, and I talked to them about making sure that you take a stand and making sure you rightfully divide the word of God, and you cannot allow the world to pull you over to its side. You need to not conform to them. They need to conform to you. You need to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world. And so it definitely, I definitely understand it. And I definitely can see how an individual can be swayed to do something else.
So I'm not sure of the exact year when you moved to the Chicago area, but Did you get to meet Jesse Jackson, spend much time around Jesse Jackson?
Yeah, when I first moved to Chicago, I participated in all the activities. Like, I would go to Operation Push on Saturdays. I would be in the crowd. I would be listening. I was just, they didn't know that I was a conservative, nor did I mention I was a conservative. But all the time I was sitting in those gatherings, totally disagreeing with a lot of stuff that was being said. But later on in life, as I started to make my message known and my voice heard, Jesse still would encourage and still would talk to me, and he would make jokes and encourage me, but he would still call me from time to time and say he appreciated what I was doing. Just last year, in a wheelchair, he stopped by the church on a Sunday morning, just to come and tell me, he appreciated it. And he told our whole church that even though he knew I was conservative and he understood what I was trying to do, he appreciated my ministry and how I love the community and for them to keep following. So I appreciated that.
It's weird, or it's interesting you mentioned that, because I spent a little bit of time with Jesse during my career, and I think we were over in London participating in a debate at the same time. And in any of my engagement with Jesse, I think we shared a flight at one point, but he was always highly respectful and highly supportive of me. And he knew, I wrote some pretty incendiary things about Jesse Jackson, but always respectful towards me and, supportive. And so I can't say it struck me as odd, but it struck me as fascinating that despite our disagreements, despite me being a vocal critic, Jesse Jackson always warm and pleasant towards me.
Absolutely. I wrote an article, kind of stinging about Jesse Jackson and how our philosophies were different. And when I saw him, I knew I was going to be like, oh, here we go. He's going to thrash me for this. But he was so cordial, so loving, so respectful. And he told me he appreciated it. He said he appreciated my stance. He understood what I was trying to do. He liked what I was doing for me to keep doing it. And so those interactions encouraged me. I will say this. He is one of the only few pastors in Chicago outside of him and James Meeks that have really been encouraging me to do what I do and believe what I believe and take a stand and never shy away from my conservative values. And so I appreciate him for that.
I can't speak for the dead, probably shouldn't speculate, but I'm going to do it. Some of it makes me think, because my cousin, Anton Butler, was killed by sheriffs in Indianapolis, I believe in 2012. And one of the first people to reach out to me was Al Sharpton. Called me, offered his condolences. And it made very pleasant, blah, blah, blah. And me and Al clearly aren't best of friends or whatever, but part of it makes me think that Al and Jesse and a lot of these characters, what you're doing is right. It's just not the business strategy that I've chosen to execute. And that's kind of how I interpret their behavior, is they kind of know, man, those guys are right, but it doesn't make good business sense.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't make good business sense. If your aim is and your goal is to profit from dealing with issues concerning race, then it's not a good business decision to be a Black conservative and hold the values that we hold. It's definitely more financially beneficial to do something contrary to that. And so, I think you're right as it relates to individuals believing and knowing that these values that we hold are true and that we're on the right side of right. And for some reason, though, a lot of individuals have not been able to let go of the purse in order to pursue purpose. And that's unfortunate for our community. It's unfortunate for a lot of people.
How should we regard Jesse Jackson? Force for good or someone that sold out the gospel for money?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It's a line that we have to address, and I think, as far as I'm concerned, he inspired me, but I could never agree with his philosophy. I could never agree with certain biblical principles that I know I'm aligned with. So I'm grateful and thankful to the Lord for him being in my life to the point to inspire me and encourage me. I just wish he would have kept true value of the biblical principles. We would have, our communities and a lot of people would probably have benefited from that. So it's tough, and it's gonna, we'll see what generations say years to come. But I tell everybody that some things I just leave up to the Lord to judge, and some things I just ask God to go ahead and determine how the outcome should be. I will say this: my wife tells me all the time, don't miss the donut looking at the hole. Sometimes we look at the hole and we miss the donut. We miss the things that were beneficial and things that helped, looking at the negatives. And so that's how I'll try to approach it.
Corey, what city you in, and where you headed next?
Well, I'm in a trailer park in Jackson, Mississippi. So you can't see it, but behind me there's these trailers, and we're in the RV park in Jackson, Mississippi. Actually, it's we're right outside of Jackson, Mississippi, and so it's a different type of place. I like Mississippi though, but I'm in Mississippi, headed toward Louisiana.
I wonder if you mentioned Deion Sanders' name while you're in Jackson, Mississippi, will you get a warm, fuzzy reception or or what?
I wondered that as well. We'll find out. We're taking a trip over to, we're going to drive in a car to Stamps for dinner. It's an old historical cheeseburger, hamburger joint. We're going to go over there, and I heard that they're really big with Jackson State University. So I'm going to definitely ask, hey, what you think about Deion Sanders? I would love to see what they say.
Well, Corey, where are you headed next?
We're headed toward Louisiana. So that's where we're going. We're going to take 2 detours and stop by Memphis and come and visit you in Nashville in March. So, but we're headed toward Louisiana.
Corey, continued success. We're telling everybody go to projecthood.org so you can support what Corey's doing. Corey, thank you so much for the time. We'll check back with you next week.
All right. God bless. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep. That's Pastor Corey Brooks. That's our show today, a very long show here on Fearless. Give us 5 minutes, and we'll be on the Harmony channel. Shamika, Anthony, and Chad Jackson. We'll be talking about Stephen A. Smith and his worship of mothers. We'll do that on the Harmony channel. That's it, and that's all for us today. We'll see you tomorrow.